Hello, if you are just joining us today, we are going to be doing our one point perspective drawing exercise in preparation for doing our hallway drawings here at the high school. So to prepare us for that, we are going to be doing an exercise going through our familiar steps that we did for our previous two exercises. This time we are going to apply these steps though to real observational drawings. When we get to our final hallway drawing, students are going to be sitting somewhere in the hallway down the 300 wing or the 400 wing, and you are going to be bringing out what's called a viewfinder, your sketchbook, a pencil, and then you guys are going to be using this as a window to look through to choose what your layout is for your hallway drawing. Now, a viewfinder can be in different sizes, different shapes. Now, before we get started, you'll notice that this paper one, it has a lot of pencil marks on it. Some of you have more pencil marks on it from previous students. To prepare for this exercise and for our own hallway drawings, we are going to take an eraser and we are going to clean off the pencil from previous students that have used this viewfinder along one side. Some of you guys have a colored side. We're using the white side. And I want you guys to erase all the extra pencil lines that previous students used because that'll eliminate any confusion because you're going to be doing the same thing as them. So students right now for this particular exercise have a printed photo of the 300 wing, their viewfinder, and their sketchbook open to a new page. Now I have my page flipped horizontally. You can have it horizontal, or if it fits vertically, that's fine too. But what you want to do before we start this demonstration is you're going to actually place your viewfinder on top of your sketchbook, and you're going to use a sharpened pencil, and we are going to trace the inside window of the viewfinder on a new page in your sketchbook. Just like this. So, I'm going to teach you during this exercise how to transfer something from a photograph to this square in here. You're going to be using for your final hallway drawing the same method, but you're transferring what you see physically down the hallway in real life to another page in your sketchbook, which will be another rectangle like this. But for our exercise, we're going to do the same method. Now, how this works, and again, we're going to keep referring back to these steps for consistency. The first thing that we're going to do is draw the horizon line and the vanishing point. So to figure that out, we have, as artists, have to figure out what perspective do we want to be interesting. So I showed you a few student examples of some drawings. You notice that some students had their vanishing point maybe towards the left. Some people had their vanishing point towards the right. It also might depend on if you're sitting on the right side of the hallway or the left side of the hallway. So you decide how you want your layout to be by where you place your viewfinder. So for me, and I like to have things a little off center. Instead of doing it right in the middle, this is where the vanishing point is, I'm going to have it off to the side just to add a little bit more interest. And I'm going to place this this composition just like this. So if you're sitting in the hallway, that means you're holding it up and you're closing one eye, and you're going to be doing the same thing when you get there. Now, what I want you guys to do is go ahead and we are going to place the vanishing point in the horizon line. Now, we need to figure out how do we place this vanishing point accurately on our paper over here. So instead of eyeballing it, we're going to use this viewfinder as a tool. So we're going to use our pencil And we're going to line up, this is the first step, I'm going to line up my pencil where the vanishing point is there. Now, where that is, I'm going to take very lightly my pencil, and I'm going to put a line here, vanishing point, and a line here. Okay? Now I'm also going to do the same thing across. I'm going to find that vanishing point where things are all pointing to this general area, and I'm going to then draw a line approximately right here and approximately right here. Now the reason why, when you think about it, think of it as this invisible bullet or like bullseye. You have this and this going to our bullseye right here. Now to make this easy, you could take your viewfinder and you can then place it on your rectangle over here. And you can do, okay, I have my bullseye is going to be right here approximately. This also has established my horizon line. So step 1 and 2 are already done after I use this little bullseye method, or little lining up a method, to get that placed accurately. Now when I go back to looking down the hallway, though, I need to make sure that I'm placing this exactly how it was. So I'm going to then go ahead and I'm going to try lining up that bullseye or that focal point right here again. Boom, boom. Here we are. Are you with me so far? Cool. Now, this is the fun part because you get to decide where the corners of the room are. So what I like to do is I like to find this vanishing point in the corners of the room, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my pencil, and I can follow this line, and I'm going to go all the way and continue the hallway edge where the floor meets the lockers here. I'm going to continue that all the way down right on my viewfinder very lightly. I'm not going to move my viewfinder though, because this is going to be really helpful for me to realign it when I go back and forth. So I'm going to also do the corner of the room up here where the actual wall meets the ceiling. I'm going to do a long line, almost like a continuation of that hallway. Very lightly, because we're going to erase these for future students later. I'm going to go over here and do the same thing. Now notice how these are not in the corners of the window. It's going to be a little over here and a little over here. Same with up here. Now this doesn't go directly to the corner. It doesn't have to. But this line that converges to the vanishing point, the corner of the room where the floor meets the wall, it's going to continue this way. And then I'm going to go up where the wall meets the ceiling. This dominant line here continues this way. Now I'm going to keep these longest lines there so that it's my roadmap to get back to the exact spot when I'm looking back down the hallway. So now that I have that, I'm going to carry my viewfinder to my sketchbook. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to align my square or my rectangle. And I'm going to put a little dash here. And I need a grid ruler. I'm going to grab a 2-inch one. And I'm going to then take my ruler and this continuation line, I'm going to go right towards my vanishing point. And then I'm going to do the same thing up here. That corner of the room I continued on there. I'm going to go towards my vanishing point. Same with this line on the left. I'm going to go towards my vanishing point. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. Again, notice how it's not just a X going from corner to corner anymore. It's kind of like this little wonky thing, because that's what we see. We are drawing what we see, not the concepts that we know. We are drawing from observation. But we're going to keep these long, long lines here. to help us lift it up when we're sitting in the hallway, and we're going to look back down. We know where to place it because we have our plus sign bullseye here where the vanishing point is. We also know how angled it is because we have those long corners of the room to line up here, here, and I need to tilt it a little bit there. That is the more important step to get the whole composition or layout established. Now, from going forward, you students have the decision to make. Do you want to use the same type of method for every single line you see on the ceiling or on the floor? And you could do little dashes for thinner or smaller details. And then you can carry this over and you can do the same thing. Go towards the vanishing point, go towards the vanishing point, but use your ruler probably for best craftsmanship. And this is going towards the vanishing point. So I just did 1, 2, 3, the lines on the tiles. So you can see how you could go back and forth to get some of those details in there that do go, and remember, anything that goes away from you goes always towards that vanishing point. So like I did these lines up on the ceiling. And the ceiling tiles, I can do the same thing up there. And I can put dashes for each one of those ceiling tiles that lined up with the edge of the window. And then I can do, because they're going down the hallway, I'm going to then do those towards the vanishing point. Now, this might look really confusing at first for just a moment because, oops, I did that last one a little too fast. This may look a little confusing because all of these lines look like they're fanning out. Sometimes at this point, I give students the recommendation to make the dominant lines in the corners of the room thicker. So like where the ceiling meets the wall, I'm going to make this a bolder line so I don't get it confused as I'm going about my drawing. Because you're going to have lots of lines at the beginning, but to establish how important these ones are, let's make them bold. So you can see the difference there. So we have drawn the horizon line and vanishing point. We've sketched the converging or orthogonal lines, the diagonal ones. And we just simplified it to ceiling and floor for now. The next step is to add vertical and horizontal lines to complete shapes. So that means vertical lines, looking down the hallway again. Some dominant vertical lines might be placing, placing, placing. This is lined up here, 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 and here. All right, so the dominant lines are like this doorway here, or this hallway that's going to the left. So, oops, I'm gonna straighten this up for you guys. And again, you can use this viewfinder as much as you want to help you transfer to your page. So maybe you do want to have these straight vertical lines to carry over to your page. Lining up your ruler with those lines you just placed, and you're going to do it just in between the converging wall lines. And you can see how I have just established this and this. You can do the same thing, going back over, looking down the hallway, making sure everything's lined up. And you can line up this vertical line and this doorway. And you're going to start seeing spacing get a little different. Now, classrooms are not evenly spaced apart, but still, you can see how they get squisher. Like, they still get closer together even though they're not evenly spaced apart. But maybe you go back and then transfer this. Now, I do have to suggest something. There are many, many details in our hallway. I'm giving you permission to simplify. If you need to simplify, let's say you're doing this for learning purposes and something, you can't squeeze in all the doorways while you are learning. Guess what? I'm not going to mark you down if you have to eliminate one door in the hallway because you're learning. Is it still creating, the purpose of this assignment is still to create an illusion of depth using these methods. Again, don't stress if you're not fitting in every single detail that you see in the hallway. I don't want to put that pressure on you. I want you guys to have fun with this and just apply what you've learned. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I have Mrs. White's room. And I have, what's kind of tricky here though, is that I have a protruding wall coming out. Just want to zoom up so you can see what I'm going to do here. Now this protruding wall, I want you to notice that anything going towards the vanishing point is converging. This wall right here that's pointing outwards, it's not going at an angle at all. It's straight across, parallel to the top of my paper. Then it's going straight down, parallel to the side of my paper. So I'm going to draw it exactly like that in just a moment. But to do that first, I need to establish how far it comes out and how far this corner is too. And again, you can eyeball things to a degree, or you can use your viewfinder as you go to mark it up and transfer. So I'm going to do this dominant line here where Mrs. White's room is. And I'm going to do a little line right here. But it doesn't go all the way down because I need to add a converging line of the top of the lockers. So that means I'm going to go over here. I'm going to align everything. And if you get confused, you can always change the length of the lines if you need to, or label the lines if you want to. But I want to make sure this is spaced good. This. But I'm going to place the top of the lockers as well. So now I'm going to go over here. And that's going to help me place the top of the lockers. And they're going down the hallway. So they go towards the vanishing point. But they stop right before Mrs. White's doorway. And I can erase this extra right here. The wall comes out here. And then down here. So I can then erase a little bit here. So you're going to do some little adjustments as you go when you start learning your environment. You're going to be really observant of different angles. And you're going to see this happens again right next to it to show her doorway. Because it happens right here too. If you have an open door, you might have it come out. Again, these lines that are not going down the hallway are left and right, straight side to side. And straight down. Now she has an open door. Now if you're lost and you're just wanting to watch, that's okay. No pressure. This is more of just an exercise to help you better understand a certain approach to this. Now, you're going to repeat this method though, where like in the ceiling and the floor as well. So if you want to eyeball it, or you can do the same thing accurately with each row of tiles in the floor. You can do that. Or at some point in the drawing, maybe you're going to just, you know, begin to use the method more and trust that method to place your lines. I'm going to start with them spread apart here. And notice how they're parallel to the bottom of my paper, the tiles that are going across. And as they get down the hallway, they're going to get closer and closer and closer. Am I actually counting the tiles in the hallway? No, because I don't want to lose my mind. I'm just going to repeat the pattern and concept that was discussed in class. And you go down the hallway just like that. I can do the same thing with the ceiling tiles. If you want to be extremely accurate, you can, but if you're going to lose your mind over it, just trust the system. I'm going to start here, have them spaced apart, and I'm straight across. I'm not tilting anything that's not going down the hallway, but they get closer and closer and closer the further they go down. So spacing gets skinnier. And then at the end of the hallway, you'll probably have a little square depending on where you're standing or sitting. There might be double doors at the end where you can put those glass doors. There might be, getting a little blurry there. You know, some of you might have brick wall at the end. You can erase some things for lights and say there's a light up here. And then there's a light down here. And these get smaller and skinnier as they go down. Lockers, you can do each individual locker or simplify. Maybe you do like 6 lockers instead of 20 lockers. That's fine. So you start to like looking back and forth. You don't have to hold up your viewfinder once you get to adding details because you already have it mapped out for you. You know, any bricks, you would use your ruler and you would fan it out for any of the tops of the grout and the bottom of the grout. You can simplify how many bricks are on the wall. So you, again, don't lose your mind counting all the bricks. And then any of the bricks that are vertical are not tilting. You know, they're going up and down. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was off the screen. There you go. So this method is how we're working with that. The last thing I want to show you, though, is this hallway. So I have this area here that I didn't really work with. The corner of the hallway is also going to be straight side to side if you have a curve. We aren't doing 2-point perspective, but the corner of this hallway is straight side to side. And notice how that just turned a wing that way. It's not going away from me, so it's straight side to side. I have a corner here. And then if I have the time, I can even like do the boys' bathroom door and that doorway going into there. And then brick, 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 brick. And then the last step would be shading any, you know, finer details. The lockers will be shaded. And I'm doing this really, really fast. You guys can follow along however you need to or just watch. You know, add little doorways. Add any shading in the floor. And you can use a blending stump, and then you can erase any highlights like I showed you in those other student demos. So before I finish up this demo, I want to show you my other example from doing this exercise in the past. Once I find it. So here's like the same exercise, just a little cleaner than what I just showed you. Obviously, this one has a little sketching essence to it versus this one that's a little bit more precise. But I did use a blending stump here, and I kind of pulled some of that graphite to the floor, any reflections I see. The bulletin board, if there's one there, I had the tops and the bottom go towards the vanishing point, and then the sides of it are actually straight up and down. So that rule applies to those things. And you guys are going to have a lot of fun because we're going to work on it for most of next week. But that's what you're going to be doing. Going back to, I'm going to slide over the student examples one last time for those watching the video. You guys can see what that looks like. So here are some student examples. Notice again how they're using the method, the steps that we took, and then they're doing for finishing touches. The last step is shading, blending, erasing, textures, all of those things. So here are some other student examples. Again, trusting the system, trusting the process as you go. I will be floating around when you guys are drawing in the hallway. I'll be checking up on each of you individually with my yardstick so I can point to different angles for you and help you and guide you along the way. So you're going to really amaze yourselves with the illusions that you're going to create, and I'm super excited to see what you do. Thanks for watching.